The restaurant owner came in disguise, secretly testing his employees. The young waiters ignored him, even the manager didn't care. But when he had a heart attack, only the elderly waitress Maria ran to help. And at that moment, he realized this was the real test. Welcome to The Last Witness. Before we begin this incredible story of hidden identities and true character, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you believe that real kindness reveals itself in crisis moments, hit that subscribe button. These stories change everything. Maria Rodriguez was 74 years old and had been working at Bella Vista restaurant for the past 12 years. What started as a temporary job after her husband's death had become her entire world. Every morning at 5 a.m., she would arrive to help with prep work. Every night, she was the last to leave, making sure every table was perfect for the next day. But lately, everything had been changing at Bella Vista. The new generation of waitstaff, college students in their early 20s, moved with a speed and energy that made Maria feel ancient. They carried multiple plates effortlessly, memorized complex orders without writing them down, and charmed customers with their youthful smiles. Maria, on the other hand, moved carefully. Her arthritis made carrying heavy trays painful, her hearing wasn't what it used to be, and she needed reading glasses to see the menu clearly. The younger staff had started making comments. "Maria, table 6 is still waiting for their drinks," called out Jessica, a 22-year-old server with perfectly styled hair and a condescending tone. "I'm getting them now," Maria replied, hurrying as much as her aging body would allow. "Maybe move a little faster next time," Jessica muttered to her friend Connor, loud enough for Maria to hear. Some of us actually care about tips. The restaurant's manager, David Kim, had been watching these interactions with growing concern. Not concern for Maria's feelings, but concern for his profit margins. Customer complaints about slow service had been increasing, and he knew exactly who was to blame. That Tuesday evening in October, David made a decision that he thought would solve his problems forever. "Maria, can I see you for a moment?" he called out during the dinner rush. Maria's heart sank. She knew this conversation was coming, but she had hoped to delay it a little longer. "Listen," David said, not even bothering to look at her directly. "I think it might be time for you to consider retirement. You've been great, but the restaurant business is changing. We need people who can keep up. Mr. Kim, please, I need this job. I can work harder. I can..." "It's not about working harder, Maria. It's about working smarter, faster. The customers expect a certain level of service. And honestly," he paused, finally looking at her, "you're not providing that anymore." Maria felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she held them back. "When?" "End of the week. I'll give you a good reference, of course." As David walked away, Maria stood alone by the kitchen door, watching the restaurant she had served faithfully for 12 years continue its bustling evening without missing a beat. What neither Maria nor any of the staff knew was that someone had been watching this entire interaction from table 12 in the corner. Robert Wellington sat alone, dressed in a simple gray sweater and worn jeans. His silver hair was slightly messy, his glasses were cheap drugstore reading glasses, and his shoes had seen better days. To everyone in the restaurant, he looked like just another elderly customer dining alone, the kind they usually tried to seat quickly and move along. But Robert Wellington was actually the owner of Bella Vista restaurant. 3 months ago, he had received concerning reports about declining service quality and staff complaints. Rather than rely on secondhand information, he had decided to experience his restaurant the way his customers did. Tonight was his third undercover visit, and what he was seeing troubled him deeply. He had watched Jessica roll her eyes when an elderly couple asked questions about the menu. He had seen Connor deliberately ignore a customer's request for extra napkins because the table wasn't worth the effort. They never tip well anyway. And now he had witnessed his manager firing the one employee who had consistently shown kindness to every customer, regardless of their appearance or perceived value. Robert had built his restaurant empire on a simple principle: treat every customer like family. Clearly, that message had been lost somewhere along the way. He decided to conduct one final test. Robert approached the hostess stand where Amanda, a 19-year-old college freshman, was texting on her phone. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I think I might be having some chest pain. Could someone help me?" Amanda barely looked up. Um, Maybe you should call 911 or something. We're really busy tonight. Could I just sit down for a moment? Maybe get some water? Sir, if you're having a medical emergency, you really shouldn't be in a restaurant. There's a hospital like 10 minutes away. Robert walked back to his table, his chest pain intensifying dramatically. He loosened his collar, began sweating, and started breathing heavily. This wasn't entirely acting. The stress of what he was witnessing was genuinely affecting him. Several customers at nearby tables began to notice the elderly man who appeared to be in distress, but the restaurant staff, busy with their important customers, paid no attention to the simply dressed older gentleman in the corner. Jessica walked past his table 3 times without making eye contact. Connor actually saw Robert clutching his chest, but assumed he was just another dramatic old person trying to get attention. Then Maria noticed. She was clearing a table nearby when she saw Robert's distressed breathing and pale complexion. Without hesitation, she rushed over. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, immediately kneeling beside his chair. I I think I'm having chest pain, Robert gasped, playing his role but genuinely impressed by her immediate response. "Okay, honey, I need you to stay calm. Can you describe the pain for me?" Robert was startled by the clinical precision of her questions. This wasn't just kindness, this was knowledge. "It's crushing, radiating down my left arm," he said, giving her textbook heart attack symptoms. Maria's eyes widened. "Jessica," she called out, "call 911 immediately. This gentleman is having a heart attack." Jessica looked over dismissively. "Maria, he's probably just... Now!" Maria's voice carried an authority that made everyone in the restaurant stop and stare. While Jessica fumbled for her phone, Maria turned back to Robert. "Sir, I need you to chew this," she said, producing a small aspirin from her purse. "It will help with the blood flow." "How do you know?" "I was a nurse for 35 years before I started working here," Maria explained as she loosened his collar further. "Retired 12 years ago, but you never really stopped being a nurse." Robert stared at her in amazement. This 74-year-old woman, whom his manager had just fired, was a retired nurse with 3.5 decades of medical experience, and she had been working as a waitress for 12 years. "The ambulance is coming," Maria continued, checking his pulse with professional competence. "Your heart rate is elevated but steady. Keep breathing slowly and deeply. You're going to be fine." The paramedics arrived within minutes. As they prepared to transport Robert to the hospital, he caught Maria's hand. "Thank you," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "You saved my life." "Just doing what anyone should do, honey," Maria replied, with a gentle smile. As the ambulance drove away, the restaurant slowly returned to normal. David approached Maria with an annoyed expression. "Great. Now we've got drama and ambulances. This is exactly the kind of thing that drives customers away," he complained. "A man could have died," Maria said quietly. "A man who probably ate too much and got heartburn," David replied. "Look, about Friday. Let's make it tomorrow instead. I think it's better for everyone." Maria nodded silently and continued clearing tables. The next morning, Maria arrived for what she believed would be her last day at Bella Vista. She had spent the sleepless night wondering how she would pay her rent, buy her medications, or fill the empty hours that work had provided. At exactly 10 a.m., 30 minutes before the lunch shift began, a familiar figure walked through the restaurant doors. It was the man from table 12, the one who had the heart attack. But something was different about him. He was wearing an expensive suit, his hair was perfectly styled, and he carried himself with unmistakable authority. Behind him walked a woman in a business suit, carrying a tablet and looking very official. The entire staff froze. Customers didn't arrive in business attire with assistants. "Good morning, everyone, Petso," Robert said, his voice carrying clearly through the restaurant. "I'm Robert Wellington, and I own this restaurant." The silence was absolute. Jessica dropped a menu. Connor's jaw actually fell open. David looked like he was going to be sick. Last night, I was here conducting what you might call a test. I wanted to see how my staff treats customers, all customers, not just the ones who look like they have money. Robert's eyes scanned the room, taking in each face. I witnessed several concerning things. I saw servers ignore customers, make judgmental comments, and dismiss legitimate concerns. But I also witnessed something extraordinary. His gaze found Maria, who was standing by the kitchen door looking confused and frightened. When I staged a medical emergency, yes, staged, only one person in this entire restaurant showed any concern for my well being. Only one person had the knowledge and compassion to potentially save my life. And that person, he paused, looking directly at Maria, was scheduled to be fired today. Maria's eyes widened in shock. You own this restaurant? I do. And Maria, I also know that you're a retired nurse with 35 years of experience. I know that you arrive early every day and stay late. I know that you remember every regular customer's favorite order and ask about their families. I know that you represent everything this restaurant was supposed to stand for. Robert turned to David. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out and explain the severance package. Then he faced the rest of the staff. The rest of you have a choice. You can learn what hospitality actually means, or you can find employment elsewhere. There will be mandatory training on customer service, empathy, and basic human decency. Finally, he turned back to Maria. As for you, I have an offer. I'd like you to become our head of customer service and staff training. Your job would be to teach everyone here what you demonstrated last night, that every person who walks through that door deserves respect, kindness, and care. Maria's hands shook as she processed what was happening. I don't understand. You've been wasted as a waitress, Maria. Your experience, your compassion, your instincts, this restaurant needs you in a leadership role. The salary is $60,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a performance bonus based on customer satisfaction scores. Tears flowed down Maria's cheeks. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, I accept. The transformation of Bella Vista Restaurant began immediately. Maria's training program focused not just on service techniques, but on seeing the humanity in every customer. She shared stories from her nursing career about treating people with dignity regardless of their appearance or social status. Jessica and Connor, initially resentful, gradually began to understand what they had been missing. Under Maria's guidance, they learned to read customers' needs, to anticipate problems, and to treat service as a form of caring for others. The restaurant's reviews began to change. Customers commented not just on the food, but on the warmth of the service, the genuine care of the staff, and the feeling that they were valued regardless of how much they spent. 6 months later, Bella Vista was featured in a major food magazine, not for its cuisine, but for its revolutionary approach to customer service, led by a 74-year-old former nurse who had found her true calling. Robert still visited occasionally, always in disguise, always watching. But now he saw something completely different, a staff that treated every customer with the same concern Maria had shown him that night. At the article's launch party, Robert gave a speech. Business isn't just about profit, it's about people. And sometimes the most valuable person in your organization is the one everyone else overlooks. Maria, now confident in her role as the head of customer service, stood before the crowd and shared her own wisdom. Every person has a story, a struggle, and a dignity that deserves respect. When we remember that, we don't just serve food, we serve humanity. The young staff members who had once mocked Maria now looked to her as a mentor. They had learned that age brings wisdom, that experience has value, and that kindness is the most important skill in any service industry. Sometimes a test reveals more than we expect. Sometimes the person we're ready to discard is the one who holds the key to everything we've been trying to achieve. Maria Rodriguez wasn't just a slow waitress. She was a guardian angel in sensible shoes, waiting for someone to recognize her true worth. Have you ever met someone whose value wasn't immediately apparent? Someone who surprised you with their knowledge, compassion, or strength? Share their story in the comments. These hidden heroes deserve recognition. And if this story moved you, subscribe to The Last Witness. We're here to uncover the extraordinary people living ordinary lives all around us. See you in the next story. Until then, remember that everyone you meet knows something you don't, has lived through something you haven't, and deserves the same respect you'd want for yourself.